On a chilly morning in a quiet suburban neighborhood, Daniel Hayes guided his familiar yellow school bus through its usual route. The frost lingered on the grass, shimmering in the early sunlight, and the rhythmic hum of the engine echoed down the otherwise silent streets. Daniel, a dependable man in his late 40s with salt and pepper hair and a warm demeanor, kept his focus on the road, his thoughts occupied by the familiar faces of the children he transported daily. As the bus rounded a corner, movement in the side mirror caught his attention. A small figure was sprinting down the street, her arms waving frantically. Daniel squinted, immediately recognizing the child as Emily Reed, a quiet and reserved girl from his route. Her desperation was palpable, her coat flapping behind her like wings. Daniel's heart sank. Slowing the bus to a halt, Daniel watched as Emily reached the door, banging on it with trembling fists. Tears streamed down her red cheeks, and her wide eyes darted back to the house she had just fled. He swung the door open. "Emily, what's going on?" he asked, his voice calm but tinged with concern. The 8-year-old stumbled up the steps, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Her small hands clutched her backpack straps as if they were a lifeline. "Please, don't leave me," she stammered, her voice breaking. "I need help." Daniel's chest tightened as he noticed bruises peeking out from beneath her coat sleeves. "You're safe here," he reassured her, kneeling to meet her tear-filled eyes. "Tell me what happened." Emily shook her head vehemently. "I can't," she whispered. "He'll hurt me if I tell anyone." Daniel's jaw clenched as he pieced together the implications of her words. He gently guided her to a seat near the front of the bus. "Stay right here, Emily. I'm going to make a call." Leaving the engine running, Daniel stepped outside and dialed the school counselor. "Mrs. Parker." Her voice grew serious as he explained the situation. "Emily's been on my radar for a while," Mrs. Parker admitted. "She's been withdrawn lately, but nothing pointed to this. I'll call Child Protective Services immediately. Don't leave her side." "Understood," Daniel replied, glancing at Emily, who sat huddled in her seat, clutching her knees to her chest. After finishing his route, Daniel parked at the school, where Mrs. Parker met them at the entrance. Emily clung tightly to his arm, her small fingers digging into his sleeve. "Please don't make me go back," she pleaded, her voice barely audible. Mrs. Parker knelt beside her, her tone soft but firm. "Emily, you're so brave for speaking up. We're here to help you, but we need to know more so we can keep you safe." Emily's eyes brimmed with fresh tears. She shook her head but stayed silent. Daniel crouched beside her, his voice steady. "You don't have to face this alone. We're all here to protect you." His words seemed to reach her, and she nodded hesitantly, though her grip on his sleeve remained tight. When a CPS caseworker, Laura Stevens, arrived, the atmosphere grew heavier. Laura's calm and practiced demeanor contrasted with Emily's visible fear. "Emily," Laura said gently, crouching to her level, "I'm here to take you to a safe place. No one can hurt you there." Emily's panic reignited. "No," she cried, wrapping her arms around Daniel. "I want to stay with you." Daniel's throat tightened, but he knew he couldn't promise what wasn't his to give. He knelt to meet her eyes. "Emily, I'll be here for you. I'll make sure you're safe. I promise." Her wide, tear-filled eyes searched his face for reassurance. Finally, she let go, reluctantly taking Laura's hand as they walked away. She glanced back at Daniel, her small face filled with both fear and hope. Hours later, Daniel couldn't shake the image of Emily's tear-streaked face. He found himself driving through her neighborhood, his instincts nagging at him. As he passed the Reed house, he noticed movement in the driveway. Squinting, he saw Thomas Reed, Emily's father, loading a large duffel bag into the trunk of his car. Thomas's movements were jerky, his head darting around nervously. Daniel parked a discreet distance away, unease creeping into his chest. He pulled out his phone and dialed his friend, Detective Mark Harris. "Mark, I need your help," Daniel said, his tone urgent. "It's about a student, Emily Reed. CPS is involved, but I just saw her dad acting suspiciously. He was loading a duffel bag into his car. Something feels off." Mark's voice grew serious. "Did you see where he went?" No, he went back inside. I didn't want to approach without backup. Good call. I'll run his name through the system and see if anything pops up. Stay safe. Daniel. The following day, Laura Stevens visited the Reed home. Her footsteps were firm as she approached the front door, clipboard in hand. The house, freshly painted and meticulously maintained, gave an impression of normalcy, but the chemical smell of bleach lingered faintly in the air. Thomas answered the door, a strained smile on his face. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone polite but guarded. "I'm Laura Stevens with Child Protective Services," she said, showing her badge. "I'm here to follow up about Emily." Thomas gestured for her to enter. "Emily is fine. There's nothing to worry about," he said smoothly, but his tension was evident. Laura's practiced eye scanned the living room. Everything was spotless, but the air of perfection felt contrived. Her gaze landed on a door at the end of the hallway. "What's down there?" she asked, motioning toward it. Thomas stiffened. "The basement. Just storage," he replied quickly. "Old furniture, tools, that sort of thing. Would you mind if I had a look?" Thomas's jaw tightened. "There's nothing worth seeing," he said, stepping in front of the door. Laura nodded, making a mental note but not pressing further. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Reed. We'll be in touch." As she left, her unease deepened. Something was clearly amiss, and she was determined to uncover the truth. That evening, Daniel met Detective Harris at a local diner. Over untouched coffee, Daniel recounted everything he had seen. Reed's name came up before, Mark said, flipping through his notes. There were domestic disturbances reported a few years ago, but nothing stuck. He's got a sealed record, an assault charge from his 20s. Completed anger management to avoid jail. Daniel frowned. That doesn't sound like someone who should be raising a child alone. It's not enough to act on, Mark admitted, but we're keeping a close eye on him. 2 days later, armed with a search warrant, Mark and Laura returned to the Reed home with a team of officers. Thomas protested loudly as they entered, but Mark ignored him, leading the search with precision. In the basement, they discovered a hidden compartment behind a loose panel. Inside were blood-stained rags, a broken child's bracelet, and crude drawings of a frightened girl surrounded by dark figures. Laura's stomach churned as she documented the evidence. Further inspection of the house revealed Sarah Reed's personal belongings locked in a closet, items Thomas claimed she had abandoned when she left. "This isn't looking good," Mark muttered. Back at the precinct, Mark and Laura pieced together a timeline. Emily's quiet bravery had cracked open a case darker than they had imagined. Thomas Reed was arrested, and Emily was placed in a safe foster home. Months later, Emily sat in a warm kitchen with her foster mother, Claire. The room was filled with the scent of freshly baked cookies, and Emily's once frightened eyes now sparkled with hope. When Daniel visited, she ran to him, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Thank you for helping me," she whispered. Daniel's voice was hoarse as he replied, "You were so brave. Emily, I'm proud of you." As he left the house, Daniel glanced back, watching Emily laugh with Claire. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he saw the beginnings of healing and hope. One small act, stopping the bus, listening, and believing, had made all the difference.